We have a ton of new info regarding some of the Year 2 content that is still coming to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, as Jordan was able to interview post-launch producer Jose Ariza about the new Forgotten Saga game mode, as well as ask him about the rumored Origins crossover and features that fans have been asking about for a long time now, like hooded combat and New Game Plus. And although our requests have definitely been heard, it sounds like not all of our wishes for the game are going to come true. We'll cover all of the big takeaways from that interview in this video, so if you're excited for that, then a like on the video would really help the channel out, and let's go! Now we know the Forgotten Saga is coming relatively soon, as Jor already mentioned in a previous video that Jose told him the mode was coming in the next update. However, before we go more in depth on the free roguelite game mode coming to Valhalla, I want to touch on an interesting quote from Jose regarding the timing of Valhalla updates. Have a listen to this.
But before you start doing the math, I can see you doing the math. I can see your eyes processing.
10 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yeah. So one of the things, don't forget that for the year 2, we're not following the strict 6 weeks. We're more focused on the content and delivering things in the way that we feel is appropriately timed for you guys.
Which is of course something we have seen this year so far, with the new patch hitting almost every month. A trend we might see continued throughout the year, with the Forgotten Saga potentially hitting in August then. Because we do know that the next update, whenever it hits, will contain probably the largest free add-on for Valhalla to date. We've made a video about the Forgotten Saga and some of the broader details already, but like I said earlier, Jordan was able to get a lot more details on this new game mode from Jose. For starters, it sounds like there's a lot more to do than just get to the bottom of Niflheim as quickly as possible. Jose mentioned that in the 4 different regions of the game mode, you will be able to find logboxes, NPCs and merchants who I presume can sell you more upgrades or gear in exchange for the currency that you earn in this game mode. You also have to choose the kind of upgrades you want to chase after, like health upgrades or a new weapon, which will help you create a build that you feel most comfortable with. Which will of course, in the vein of other games in the roguelite genre, make sure that no run will be the same, as gear should have a huge influence on how you play. Because you will of course enter Niflheim without the gear you've collected throughout Valhalla. Instead, you will have to count on the armors, runes, abilities and weapons you find there to make your way to hell. Which sounds like it's not a bad thing at all, because Jose kept emphasizing that these would really change up your playstyle. He didn't go into too much detail on what kind of buffs to expect, but he did say that the rewards are all very dedicated to specific archetypes of gameplay, and also saying that when it comes to the weapons, we're going to see a lot of the epic weapons show up. Which we of course already saw in the trailer, with Mjolnir being part of the reward screen. But perhaps most exciting, Jose also said that there will be cool stuff for us to take back outside of the Forgotten Saga. So while we aren't able to take any of our gear with us into Niflheim, you will still get some rewards to use in the main game. Considering the fact that most free content drops have either come with a new armor set or a new set of weapons, I'd assume that one of those is a safe bet, although we might get more considering the size of this content drop. You're also asked Jose about the size of the Forgotten Saga, so let's throw it to them to hear what Jose had to say about that.
What would you say, maybe compared to other game modes, like for example the river raids or the mastery challenges, which if you like power through it, you can complete it in maybe 3 hours. Is this like way bigger than that? What are we kind of looking at?
Are we talking for a regular person or you?
Just regular. I think that's better.
Well, and
it's replayable, I would imagine, right?
Yes, of course. I'll give you a little spoiler. I will highly encourage you to beat it more than once. So it really depends. I think for you, I would say probably 3 hours, maybe 4.
Okay.
Depending, Then again, I also thought Mastery Challenge, you were going to power through it faster, but,
Whoa, okay. I need to step up
So
the game.
I would say I would give a range between 3 to 4 hours to maybe 6, 7.
Plus, there is of course also a story to discover, which Jose has said is structured around the fact that we will be returning to some form of hub every time we are defeated and are kicked out of Niflheim. Which immediately made me think of Hades, which of course really made the most out of the roguelite mechanics in its storytelling by offering you new dialogue every time you died and were sent back to the bottom of the underworld. Either way, should be some interesting lore in there concerning Baldur and Odin, although Jose has said that it's not necessary necessary to play through Dawn of Ragnarok to enjoy the story in the Forgotten Saga, as it's a very self-contained story. And speaking of connections to Dawn of Ragnarok, Jordan also asked if the Odin powers we saw in that DLC would return for the Forgotten Saga, and sadly this is not the case. Part of the fact that you as Odin are not welcome in Niflheim is you losing access to those powers, so while turning into a raven or reviving slain enemies would have been really useful, we'll have to do without those powers in this new mode. When asked if the Odin powers would be used in other upcoming content, Jose simply stated that he did not know. Which is of course interesting, as a lot of signs pointed at there being a second mythical DLC to round out the story, but instead it looks like the story will find its conclusion in the Forgotten Saga. In fact, Jose did confirm to us that there are currently no more paid expansions planned for year 2 of Valhalla, making it very likely that Dawn of Ragnarok will be the last piece of paid DLC for the game. Which, if Jason Schreier's report on Assassin's Creed Rift is to be believed, makes sense, as the second DLC for year 2 evolved into a standalone game. But Jose did tease us, saying that there is one more surprise left in Valhalla on top of what we already know. Which may or may not be that Origins crossover we speculated about in a previous video. We'll link to that one for if you haven't watched it yet. We of course had to ask Jose if something like that was already in the works, so here's what he had to say.
I think the crossover is still the most exciting update you guys did for Valhalla. You must have looked at that, and that was a huge success. Is that something we can see with Origins now getting 60 FPS?
It would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be really amazing.
I wish that I could either confirm or deny. But you know what? I will say this. I think the last year and a half since Valhalla launched to now, I think as a game, as a brand, we've proven that we can do anything, right? But we can't do everything at the same time.
So from the sound of it, at the very least, we will have to wait until the other content that's still in the pipeline is released, but Jose didn't flat out deny the possibility either, so I'm still keeping hope. We do have another hint from Amunet's voice actor Alex Wilton Regan concerning the origin side of that crossover. When asked on an Instagram Q&A about a potential Amunet and Cassandra crossover, she replied with,
"My lips are sealed."
And you wouldn't have to seal your lips if you have nothing to talk about, right? So, seems like Alex knows more than we do, and I'm curious when we'll hear more about it. Yor also asked Jose about some features the community has been asking about for a long time now. First and foremost, of course, hooded combat. Kilash over on Twitter even DM'd us saying he spotted a potential tease in the Celebration trailer in this shot from Dawn of Ragnarok, where we can see Odin with the hood up but the cloak folded on the back. Whereas currently in-game our options are hood down, cloak folded, or hood up and cloak out. So, was that a hint at this feature coming soon? Here's Jose's response to your asking him about it.
Combat with a hood on, that's something you also discussed to be looking at, but that was also hard with stealth, for example.
Yeah, it's still on the plate, I would say that, assessing, but there's all the behavior that happens when, when you get caught, right? Yeah. When you're caught and whatnot. Okay. But yeah, it's still something we're investigating.
So it sounds like it's still somewhere in the pipeline, although we still don't know when exactly to expect this feature. I hope it's not overlooked in the end, especially the legacy outfits I think really need it. It just feels wrong using Altair's armor with the hood down. On that note, Yor did also ask Jose about more legacy outfits in year 2, and here's what he had to say about that.
There's a lot of little surprises coming. Obviously, if I tell you, there won't be surprises, but they'll be revealed throughout the year.
But can you say if it's like a legacy outfit? Like, can we expect at least one?
I guess you could expect anything.
So that Ezio Revelations outfit that leaked a while back is still in the cards. Let's hope we see it drop during the AC celebration. And speaking of leaks, we also asked Jose if we'd see more river raids in the future, as we did have a lot of files earlier in the game's life cycle mentioning raids in the mythical realms, but with Jose saying there are currently no plans for the new river raids, I think the chance we'll ever see those is very, very slim. Finally, we of course had to ask about an update on New Game Plus, and well, the story here is pretty much still the same as it was the last time we asked. We know it's being worked on, as there are even files in the game that reference New Game Plus, but the team wants to do more than just implement a traditional New Game Plus that just lets you replay the game from the beginning. Another big concern is the fact that most new content, like the upcoming Forgotten Saga, requires some game progression like building the Seer's Hut, meaning that starting New Game Plus in a traditional way would mean players are locked out of that new content until they reach a certain point of progression. Which is why Jose is very adamant about the fact that if the team adds New Game Plus, it would have to be the very last thing they add to the game. And with the amount of new content currently announced for Valhalla, it will be quite a while before we actually reach that point. But that's all the major information we were able to gather from Jordan's interview with Jose. Remember to leave a like if you liked the video, subscribe so you won't miss the next one, and if you want, you can watch our previous video with even more information from the interview. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.